going to do this very quickly. There are copies of the PowerPoint available in the back of the room. There are some details you may be interested in seeing. I think the Deputy Secretary has covered a lot of what I had hoped to cover, which is excellent. So I wanted to just hit some key points. I think I'll be okay, so I'm going to get into a couple of slides. I think the first thing we need to think about is, why is this important to Pennsylvania? Pat Buckley and I had the opportunity to spend the last month on the road and met with a lot of people, 8 county workshops, heard a lot of input. What I find to be fascinating about this whole process is, despite the fact that we're north and further north we get of the actual Chesapeake itself, there's a lot of dedication to protecting and restoring the Chesapeake within Pennsylvania. We've heard that again and again at these kind of workshops. And if you think about it, the number of people in Pennsylvania that can be impacted by what we do with the Chesapeake Bay and how we approach it, we've got 43 counties that are either totally or partially within the watershed. Deputy Secretary mentioned we have about 40,000 farms. We also have about 1,200 municipalities. What we need to keep in mind is that there are various impacts that could happen to them as we move forward with this. They're making progress. Pennsylvania is making progress. And this is information that's from the Chesapeake Bay watershed model. This is just nitrogen. I think Jeff covered the fact that we're talking about nitrogen, phosphorus, and sediment. Those are the 3 compounds that we want to be able to control. We want to reduce what's getting to the Chesapeake in terms of pounds for those. On the left-hand side of this slide shows nitrogen where we were at in 1985. We've made progress through 2010, but the science through this TMDL process says we're not far enough. And the next slide shows, in terms of pounds, how much more we need to get. And not the bottom line, but the one line above that is basically to give you an idea in terms of millions of pounds. We need to get about 33 million pounds of reductions in nitrogen, about 1.26 phosphorus, and about 524 million pounds of sediment. A lot to do there. But as the Deputy Secretary mentioned, we want to continue to build on these successes and be able to move forward as we move into this next part of this process. Here's another thing that we need to keep in mind. If we do not make progress, is that EPA can come back and look at the permitting processes. I mentioned 1,200 municipalities, 40,000 farms. Various permits are issued to those entities, whether it's a CAFO, whether it's a municipality with an MS4 permit, whether it's a municipality that's part of an authority with a sewage permit. EPA could come back and require tighter limits on our permits if we're not making progress. They can object to our permits. They could also increase their enforcement. So we need to keep that in mind also as we move forward with this. I'm just going to stand right here because I don't think I need the microphone. John already mentioned how much public input we've been doing with this. What I want to get to is where we're at right now with this second phase. A draft is due to EPA by December 15th. We've been working with our management team. We anticipate that next week after next we will submit that draft. EPA will then be coming back with comments sometime in February. We are to submit a final by the end of March. This has definitely been an adaptive, iterative process as this has moved forward. EPA originally put out guidance in March. As we've worked with them, and I don't think it's a secret, we've had disagreements with them on various things, including the watershed model itself. We're working with them, we're trying to work through those. Some of the guidance has changed. There was a recent letter dated October 17th. And as this has evolved, I think really 2 things have come out. Jeff mentioned that we want to make sure that we're working with local partners. We've been doing that. Also, we were to express local area targets as appropriate. Our understanding is that that's moving towards more of a qualitative, not so much a quantitative requirement. So what we've done the last couple of months is, as I mentioned, Buckley and I were out meeting with a number of individuals. We had a number of meetings, and those went very well. Again, what we heard out there was there's interest in protecting the Chesapeake Bay. Jeff mentioned that we don't think all of the information getting to the model is accurate. There's interest in helping us get more information on best management practices to make sure that we're getting all the credit that Pennsylvania deserves to get. There's a lot of interest in a new stormwater permit. And there was also a lot of concern about establishing county level numbers. We started this process out, we thought that we were going to provide numbers to the counties, which they would not be regulatory requirements, but they would be targets. As we put that information out, there was a lot of questions on the numbers. We do not plan on including those numbers in this second phase of the work. Again, that's based a good bit on the input that we've got as we move forward the last couple of months. And also there was a lot of concern about funding and resource gaps. So what we're going to do, when WIP comes out here in a couple of weeks, you'll see we're going to do things like what the Deputy Secretary mentioned. We're going to be working with Lancaster, Lycoming, York counties. They're already moving forward, making some good progress. And what we're going to do, we'd like to take that and use that as a model as we move forward and see what we can do in these local areas. This is the draft right now, the outline. Very similar to some of the information we had in phase one. And the other thing that I want to point out before I step aside is that the 2-year milestones are also a very, very important thing that we need to keep in mind. Not only do we have to submit this WIP on December 15th, we have to work with the DEP to make sure that we can get their approval of that. We also have to keep in mind that the final goals for this are 2025. That's when all the best management practices will be on the ground. That's when all of the permits are to be written. And EPA is checking our progress every 2 years. If we're not making progress, they can come back and implement some of those backstops through their permitting authority. And this is basically the next steps. We put the WIP out on December 15th. We will have a public comment period for 45 days. And then we'll take a step back and see the comments that we have. And our plan is to submit it by the end of March. Real quick, this is just an EPA source of information. If you want more information on specific permits, those types of things, I would recommend taking a look at this website. And we'll open it up to questions.